oftentimes what I want to ask people is, if your daughter was asking you the same question, what would you tell her? If your son was asking you this question, what would you tell him?
Yeah.
Peterson says, treat yourself like you're someone that you're responsible for caring for. Ask yourself that question when you feel stumped about something, when you're not sure which direction to take. Welcome back to another episode till the wheels fall off. I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
Today, we're going to be talking about 4 mental traps that you can fall into that will keep you stuck. This is an episode, I think when we first started the show, we wanted to talk about things like this. We found ourselves as voices for people who don't have a voice in the addiction space. And we're not getting away from that, but we're going to elaborate and expound upon that. You're not going to want to miss this episode. You will learn something from it. This is going to be helpful.
Yes.
Housekeeping. All right. If you haven't reviewed the show, if you haven't followed the show, subscribed to the show, or left a review, I already said that, tell your friends as well. We would very much appreciate that. It helps the show become more discoverable. It's good for us. It's good for people that don't know about it, that need help. And if you've gained something from the show, it would mean everything to us if you could leave a review. That's all we ask. That's it. We've got a website, twfo.com. That is tufo.com, where you can find out everything that you need to know about us. Who are we? What do we do? What do we offer? It's all there. We've got a free blog and newsletter there as well. If you want to scroll onto that website, go all the way to the bottom and put your email address in. We will get you a newsletter every Monday morning. Quick read to kind of start the week, some insightful thoughts. It's great. And I will not spam you. I promise you, I will never sell your stuff. I will never send you 10 promos on Black Friday or anything like that. That's the most annoying thing in the world, isn't it?
Right?
I can't stand that. I'm against it. I won't do that to you. I promise. While you're there, you can check out some of our merch. We've got recovery rocks. These are great. Got a few of these going out this week. It's got our logo on the front, and on the back it says, "Thank you for being my rock." This is a really cool way to acknowledge the journey that a spouse or a partner takes as they're rolling a recovery process. Paige, you know firsthand that there's just not a lot of recognition for what spouses and partners go through.
No, not at all.
Like in 12-step programs, you get chips. People are congratulating you. Oh, I'm so proud of you. No one ever asks how a spouse is doing.
That's very rare.
It's a great way to acknowledge their journey. You can get those on the website. You can also get sweatshirts. It is chilly out. I know that they said today in Mexico, it was 105 degrees. And then in Canada, it was like 51 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Huge temperature swing.
Yeah. Yesterday felt like spring here.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
All kinds of weird stuff going on weather-wise. But
it's the new normal.
Crew neck's a great way to kind of manage that. We've got those there. We've also got hats. We've got stickers. We've got T-shirts. What else am I missing?
I think that's it.
Pretty basic merch, but it's out there. If you want to support us, you can do that there. We've also got a Patreon. Check that out by going to our link tree. If you want to buy us a cup of coffee, hey, I appreciate you guys. You can do that there too. We've also got a free Facebook community where you can network with over 3,000 other listeners of the show and talk about what you're going through. Sometimes you just need to be heard. We
have 2 member-led meetings a week, and then a third one that is member-led as well, but it's more on specific podcasts that you listen to. So it's a listening podcast club, which is really, really cool and really beneficial for our listeners.
Yeah, we want to hear about what you're going through. We want you to feel validated, but more importantly, we want to know what you're doing about it.
Yep. What are you learning? How are you growing?
Yes. Even if you feel like you don't have any options, sometimes you can just let us know what you did for self-care that day. Here's what I did to focus on myself and the things that I can control. This is a great place to do that. You are going to be safe there. It is, people are vetted before they get in there. Yep. It is listeners of the show only. You are in good company.
Yep.
We've also got a course called Independently Strong. We've built this. Gosh, it's been around now for
a little over a year.
Yep. We wanted to package our journey, our message into a course that was scalable for other people to go through, right? It took a long time to do this. Like, what are some of the basics, right? So the very first thing you do is you go through a relationship evaluation. You do an audit of the relationship itself. Let's see what we're actually working with here. And then once we have that, we go through the process of healing and what that looked like. It is led primarily by Paige. I've got a small part in there. Most of it's you, and you're walking people through what growth looks like, how to find yourself again, how to rebuild your self-esteem, how to begin to focus on the things that you can control and let go of the things that you cannot, how to make difficult decisions, and just know that you are not alone in that.
It's an empowering process.
It was built alongside a licensed professional counselor, Dr. Christopher Taylor, our partner in this thing. So it's not just us spouting what we think we know. This is actually backed by research and clinical expertise. It is great. You can get 75% off of that using the code Wheelies75 at checkout. That's Wheelies with an S at the end, 75 at checkout. Last thing, we've got a sponsor for today's show. Thank you to Soberlink. Soberlink's been an amazing partner of ours. If you don't know what Soberlink is, think of it as the world's most high-tech breathalyzer. You might ask, well, why would you be talking about breathalyzers? Well, they serve two functions as we can see them, right? First one, I think if you were a guy like me who struggled with rebuilding trust, it is a great way. I would implore you to voluntarily use this thing as a way to show sobriety. It takes one aspect of the difficulty of rebuilding trust completely off the table. People don't have to guess if you're drinking anymore. They just don't. You can schedule tests and email contacts, people in your sober community. This can be a counselor. This can be a spouse. This can be a group of friends. This can be your sponsor, whoever you want it to be. And when every time you blow, they get an alert. Hey, so-and-so's doing the deal. It just takes that conversation out of it, right? And for a spouse and partner, this is a really great way. If you're voluntarily rebuilding trust, it gives them permission to let go of wondering, the what ifs and all that stuff. I think the most beneficial thing for, as far as I can see, and that's great. Believe me, this is great if you're voluntarily going to use it. You can't force it on someone who doesn't want to use it, but if you're going to volunteer for it, this can be really great. There's also a 24/7 team on standby to review all data. So if something comes up weird, they'll ask you to blow again because they know the difference between someone that's had, people say like citrus, oranges, gum, certain candies. Dude, that's not
They've said citrus before?
I've heard it all. I ate an old orange. It must have been fermented. They know the difference, okay?
Oh my God.
The stuff
I'm
we'll
sorry.
say. The stuff we'll say, right? They know the difference. There's a team on standby that reviews these results. Actual humans, not just a computer system that reviews these results. They will ask you to blow again after a period of time, and then you're going to get accurate data. So they're not trying to catch you off guard. They're not interested in picking one side or the other. They're interested in providing the best data possible. That's what they care about. That's what they care about more than anything. It's got built-in tamper detection too. You cannot take this thing apart. You cannot cheat it. You cannot trick it. It has military-grade facial recognition technology. This thing is high-tech, sleek, and legitimate, and totally portable as well. You can use it anywhere. But if you're in a custody situation, let's say you've split up and you're not sure if your kids are going somewhere safe, I don't think that I would do it any other way than with Soberlink. It is the best tool in the industry for this very thing. It is court admissible in all 50 states and in Canada and trusted by over 200,000 people. It is considered the gold standard in court. So if you are going through a separation with someone, you want to make sure your kids are going somewhere safe, get with Soberlink. Soberlink is providing our listeners a $50 off coupon. All you have to do is go to their website, soberlink.com/wheels. to get that coupon. Again, that's soberlink.com/wheels. So thank you so much to Soberlink for sponsoring today's episode. That's all we've got for announcements. Let's get on to the episode.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to this episode.
This is going to be a fun one, I think. I think whenever we started the show, this is kind of what we had in mind.
Yeah, it's more like growth-oriented type discussions, I would say.
Yeah.
And kind of like our opinions and how we feel about certain things. And I just think I want to have these discussions because I think that you and I have great discussions together about this stuff.
This is where most of our growth came from, like actual growth came from. It didn't just come from removing a substance and talking about that forever. It's about walking through life. I will be the first to admit that I didn't really understand what growth looked like. I was still very much a teenager mind whenever I got sober.
Yeah, you were 17.
And I had a lot of ground to make up. It's true. It's true.
I know.
I had a lot of ground to make up. So I started to read. I started to challenge myself with new ideas. And this is kind of some of that. We're going to talk about 4 or 5 different traps that you can find yourself in that will keep you stuck. It's a great way to challenge yourself. So most people think that they're making smart decisions, but what they're really doing is avoiding hard ones. You're measuring the wrong things. I can almost guarantee that. You're looking for shortcuts and you're waiting for the perfect answer. And all the while, time is slipping by. So today we're talking about these 4 traps that keep people stuck in bad relationships, dead-end jobs, toxic habits, and cycles of regret. The first one's going to be McNamara's fallacy, James Clear's principle, Solomon's paradox, Thomas Sowell's truth, and we're also going to talk about Mark Manson a little bit.
Okay.
You love Manson, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read his book twice.
It's so good. It's so good. Okay. The first thing we're going to talk about is McNamara's fallacy. If you've never heard of this one, Robert McNamara was the former U.S. Secretary of Defense. He was in charge during the Vietnam War. There's a fallacy named after him because he made a mistake. In measuring the progress of the war in Vietnam, he decided to measure body count.
Okay.
It's how many of the enemy have we killed?
Okay.
That's
that
what he
sounds
measured.
simple, right?
Right?
That's
Yeah.
a simple way of measuring something.
Yes, but what ends up happening is that you start to care about the things that you can measure rather than the things that you should actually care about.
Okay.
So if you're using body count as a metric for success, for example, what you're ignoring is whether or not the war is actually being won. And so how can we apply this to relationships, to jobs, parenting, or anything else? So let's say a relationship. Okay. We've been together for 10 years.
Yeah. A lot of people, God, shit, man. I did this. I measured our relationship like this.
Yeah.
So we just celebrated 24 years together.
We did.
Which is pretty awesome.
We did.
Yeah.
It was a couple days ago.
It is.
24
It's
years.
pretty awesome. But I remember whenever you were in, when you were in active addiction, and I had felt like, oh my gosh, we'd already had 12 years together, 10 years together at that point.
We got married at 10 years.
Okay, right. So we were 14 when we got
11,
together.
12.
You got sober at 26, 27.
12 years.
But during that time, I was like, God, we've had so much time together. I remember always like, oh, we've been together forever. We've been together for a long time. We've been together. Like that meant everything to me. But the actual benefits from the relationship, we were not measuring.
No.
We were not looking at that. It was just like, how long have we been together?
Yeah, we look at things like years together. We look at things like how many children do we have together. We look at things like financial stability. And these are the metrics that we use to gauge relationships because they're measurable. They're measurable.
Yeah.
You can look at that and there's an actual number there that's supposed to mean something to us. And we get trapped in this all the time in relationships and we've talked about the sunk cost fallacy as well. This is the fallacy where we will attach too much to time or money or any type of investment into something rather than looking at, is this thing actually working for me?
Yeah.
We look at it, well, I've already invested 10 years in this. I have to stick with it.
Yeah.
Why?
Right.
You don't have to. Tell me why. It's because you feel like it's a waste otherwise.
Yeah.
You know? So we get so hung up on measuring things. But what should we be measuring? Why are we caring so much about the things we can measure and not about the things that actually matter in a relationship? Things like happiness, things like emotional intimacy. Safety.
Yeah.
Just the pure concept of safety.
And are you living by your values? Is your partner on the same track with you? Like if you're growth oriented and you value that, is your partner doing the same thing?
Right.
These are the things that we need to be measuring. We need to be measuring these things that aren't, like tangible. Kind of like when we talk about substances and behaviors, it's easier for people to blame the substance because it's measurable. You can see it. You can put it together, but that's too easy. You got to switch it and say, okay, well, what are the behaviors? And the same thing goes with your relationship. Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel like you can grow together?
Yeah.
Grow together. I said this in the last podcast, not like just grow up together. It's more like looking at years, not just aging together. It's more growing, which means shifting, changing perspectives, learning new things, thinking outside the box, being there for each other. That's what we need to measure for it to be successful.
Yeah. And not to plug the course again, but I'm going to plug the course because I think it's really important. And we actually made our first module available as a standalone course. I think it's like $50. You can go to the website and
relationship
grab it.
evaluation.
But that's what it is. We remove the measurables and we talk about the quality of the relationship. So often we're looking at quantity and we start to care about quantity, the things that we can measure versus the quality of a relationship, because it's harder to define. It's harder to figure out. How happy are you? Okay,
Right.
They haven't cheated on me. A lot of people say that. Well, they haven't cheated on me. Okay, do you feel like your emotional needs are being met? That's more important than that one measurable, because there are plenty of people out there who haven't had an affair, but they're no happier than someone who has.
Why do you think we do this? Do you think it's because we're conditioned a certain way to, like, relationships you need to be together forever in order to be successful?
That's a really great question. Why do we do this?
Why? Yeah.
I think that often what we will do is look at simply metrics that we can gauge progress from. We do this with weight loss too.
Yeah.
It's what is something that proves my assumption or proves my state. You have to be able to have something to back up your feeling about something or another. But oftentimes the things that we choose simply don't support the conclusions that we make.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it's confirmation bias a lot of the time. We try to support oh, of course I'm happy in my marriage. We've got 2 kids. We've got stable jobs. We've been together for 15 years.
Mm-hmm. And we take all the pictures. We make sure everything looks great on Facebook and those things. But I guess it's just easier to measure those things.
Yeah, I think that if you really want to get deeper into it as well, you can look at the way that we attach so much value to just stuff, measurables. We can compare against other people to determine how well we're doing. People do this all the time with careers, like one of the first, I know that this happens in a lot of circles with men, is like one of the first things you ask each other is, what do you do for a living? What the fuck does that matter?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting just so you know if we're in the same field or not, but I think in some way it's sort of like this dick measuring contest. Like, what do you do? What do you make? What do you have? That's what we care about in life. And we're kind of trained this way too.
Yeah, that's what I was.
There's a new documentary that came out that will scare the shit out of you. It's on Netflix. It's about just consumerism. Talks about like all the stuff that we buy that just ends up as junk. And
we haven't watched that.
I've watched part of it.
You
It scared me. I had to stop. It's man, it will make you rethink every purchase you ever make. But we're built and we are conditioned at a very young age to accumulate things and status. It's about status really more than anything. And it's a way to gauge the health of something. We believe anyway. We can gauge the health of our relationship if we can look at the number of years we've been together, if we can look at the stuff that we have and all this crap.
But that stuff doesn't matter.
That's the point. That's the point, is that the fallacy is that we end up caring about the things that we can measure rather than the things that we should actually care about.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think that's why a lot of people end up being in denial in a lot of their relationships too, is because they're so focused on that instead of looking at the things that truly impact them and their children and their children's future. Like we need to look at the deep stuff. We need to look at the things that are really meaningful within these relationships.
It's hard to do because once you tear the cover off of this and once you start to really examine it, more than likely, I would guess that you're not going to like what you find.
Right.
I think that anyone that does this exercise is going to find something. They're like, oh, man, I never really thought about, like, I'm sacrificing the thing I want, which is happiness, for the things that I believe show happiness, which is years together, which is the house, which is the cars and all this crap that you struggle and suffer to get to prove your hypothesis to be true. It's like, it's the supporting evidence we think that we need to make sure that we're happy.
Yeah. And I think toxic positivity goes along the lines of this too. Is a lot of people will just look at the positives and these things instead of what's really impacting you.
Yeah. So, what are we actually getting at here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we do this with careers, especially.
Okay. Yeah.
We will sacrifice so much happiness.
You want to speak on this?
I don't know if I'm ready to yet. I'm
no,
guilty
I just
of this.
mean like in general, just people have this thing where we think that our career, we gauge it based on how much we're being compensated and how much hard work we put in, instead of looking at it as being fulfilling.
It's a lesson that you can only learn whenever you've arrived at that point. So just a bit of transparency. I'll talk about this more when I'm ready to talk about it. But I will just say that I always thought there'd be a magical number that I arrived at salary-wise or income-wise that I could deal with the shit that my career comes with.
Yeah.
And so like when you first graduate from high school, it's like, man, if I could just make like $50K a year, I think I'd be set. And then you do it and realize that there's so many other problems in life, And so then instead of saying, am I fulfilled in my career? Am I excited when I get up in the morning? Does this align with my values? Am I really fulfilled? We just keep plugging away for the measurable, which is I just need more shit. If I just had more shit, I could deal with it better. And so I achieved each level that I came up with in my mind. And you finally get to a point where you're like, another dollar is not going to make me happy. And I understand that now. Mm-hmm. And I look back with a lot of regret over the last, 15 years I've been in this career, because I absolutely hate it. I hate it. I hate my career.
You've talked about this publicly, so it's not like...
And what I came to understand about myself is that above all, I think I value agency. I value the ability to make decisions.
Right.
And I don't have a lot of that in the current ownership structure of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm miserable. And so I sacrificed the thing I wanted, which was agency and freedom, for something that I thought would get me that, which was money and success and cars and all this crap. Mm-hmm. Just to find that it's really just handcuffs. It's handcuffs. Because then once you have that stuff, you have to stay in the position, and it's terrible. Relationships kind of work the same way. We can go for those measurables and then find ourselves absolutely stuck and miserable in it.
Right.
We do the same shit with weight loss.
Oh, yeah.
Weight loss, so many people, there's one metric that we all use, maybe two, but the big one is the scale.
The scale.
Another one might be the size of pants that you wear, or shirt, or something like that, you know, but that's what we're after. We're after that number on the scale. And I would argue that that's not what we should really be after at all.
No, it's not.
If you're doing the journey the right way, that's just a byproduct of living a right sort of life.
Right. We need to measure it based on how we're feeling.
Yep.
How awake we are, how our health is, you know, that's how we should be measuring these types of things. And how our clothes fit too is kind of a big deal as well.
It feels great because when you can wear shirts.
Because it does. It feels good.
You feel good about yourself.
You feel good about yourself. But the actual scale, like I remember going through the program that I went through, they did not want you to step on the scale like for a long time. And I didn't, because I think maybe I did it once a week. I think I did it once a week, but that was it. It was more of like looking at pictures to see where my progress was than anything.
If you're losing weight and you're lifting weights and things like that, your weight loss is not going to be linear. So it's not just going to be down every single week by a very consistent amount. There are fluctuations depending on your hormones that week, or depending if you've changed your diet, maybe you're a bit stopped up, you've got some waste you need to get rid of, like you could just be swollen. There's all kinds of things, right, that affect this. You should love the work you're doing, because it makes you feel good about yourself.
Yes.
It brings you pride in the work that you're putting forth, and the resilience that you're building.
Ooh, that's what I was going to say.
That's the stuff that you have to love the work. You have to love the journey. Yeah. And so I think that oftentimes though, we focus on that measurable so much that you end up, when you do have these setbacks, it's so easy to give up because you've lost the measurable. It's like,
you're like,
what are we even doing
what's the point? What's the point of doing this?
Yeah.
But that also comes from instant gratification too, where we think that if we work hard for a week or two, then we should be seeing results. But the reality is that's not how life works. We have to work consistently for a long period of time. I'm talking like 1 to 2 years almost, with like changing your habits and consistent changes to actually see progress and to be proud of the progress that you've made. But you have to enjoy the journey while you're going down it.
Yeah, you have to love the work.
You do. And it's not easy. It's
if you don't
hard.
love the work, you're going to stop doing it.
Well, yeah, but even if you don't love it, you just have to kind of suck it up sometimes and enjoy that. And you love how you feel after you do it.
Yeah. The pride you have in yourself is not worth, is more valuable than anything else.
Yeah.
Truly it is. It really is. It really is. People put so much emphasis on that number on the scale, man. And I argue that if you're doing things the right way and for the right reasons, that will just be a byproduct of a life well lived. People do the same thing when it comes to clean time and sobriety time. I see this all the time, really. People get really hung up on their clean time. And maybe, I don't know, I've talked about it a lot, like letting people know I've been doing this for a while, over a decade now, but that's not nearly as important as the quality of the recovery someone has. There are people out there who have a decade of recovery, but there's a guy with, a month somewhere that's got better quality of recovery.
Yeah, this
better
is
idea
like
about what recovery really is.
Sobriety and recovery.
Right. Yeah, I've been sober for 5 years. Okay. But are you happy?
Have your behaviors changed?
Yeah.
Are you really growing? Are you changing? Are you becoming the person you want to be? Or are you just getting rid of a substance?
Yeah. So like the question is, are you paying attention to what you can count or what actually matters? And I would ask that you think about whatever it is in life right now that you're struggling with, and ask yourself that question and say, if I'm just caring about the things I can measure, what is that actually providing me? Am I actually getting any closer to what I really want out of this? Am I getting any closer to living, but closer to my values? Am I living authentically this way? Those are the questions we have to ask ourselves. I like that fallacy, because I can ask myself that a lot of the time. It's tough to do like in business and whatnot, because there are metrics that we use. There's millions of them. I remember in one of my finance classes, we had to memorize, I think it was well over 100 financial ratios.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trained, like, this is what's important. And they are important if you're talking about profitability and efficiencies, and we're talking about like publicly traded companies and whatnot. Like, these metrics do matter. They directly translate to your stock price and everything else.
Yeah.
Inside of what we do, like these little bitty micro companies that we're not really necessarily trying to achieve profitability, other than we're trying to change people's lives.
Yeah.
That's what we measure.
Yeah.
And my brain, I have to tell myself, like, it's not what's coming in that matters. It's the effect you're having on people's lives. And that's what really matters.
Right.
And my thesis is as long as you're changing people's lives, everything else will be okay.
Yeah, for sure.
It will work itself out.
Yeah.
So in relationships and sobriety, in your career and weight loss, anything else that you might be struggling with right now, think about it. Are you focusing on the things that truly matter, or are you just focusing on the things that you can measure arbitrarily because they can be measured? Let's care about the things that actually matter as opposed to things that we can just measure. That's what McNamara's fallacy is.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love it.
I love that.
I love it too.
James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. You read Atomic Habits, right?
I did not read Atomic Habits.
I thought you read Atomic Habits.
No, I started reading it, but I didn't finish it a long time ago. Did you read it?
I've gone through it, skimmed through it many times.
Yeah.
I have not read it. I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on it because I've gone through so many chunks of it.
That's why I didn't read it, though, because I had already had a lot of habits. I had already created a lot of healthy habits within myself that it wasn't really going to apply to me at the time whenever I had it.
Yeah.
But I think I could read it now to help others understand the habits.
So James Clear essentially says that you already know what to do. You're just avoiding it. This is, I think, important because we get a lot of questions like we're experts on this or something like that.
I mean, we've been through it.
We've been through it, sure. But oftentimes what I want to ask people is, if your daughter was asking you the same question, what would you tell her? If your son was asking you this question, what would you tell him?
Yeah.
Peterson says, treat yourself like you're someone that you're responsible for caring for. Ask yourself that question when you feel stumped about something, when you're not sure which direction to take. So James Clear has this quote. He says, use what you already know. People are so busy searching for a shortcut or hoping an easier path will reveal itself that they let numerous moments slip by when they could get results simply by doing what is right in front of them. This ties into a lot of our previous episodes.
Yeah, it does.
We talked about research as a coping mechanism.
Yes.
And it's the cause of inaction most of the time.
Right. Like, is understanding addiction really going to help you take action, or is it going to keep you stuck in whatever it is
or understanding
that you're doing?
Attachment styles,
Yes.
or understanding someone's trauma, or understanding any number of psychological concepts? Is this going to actually help you get what you want, or is this a trap of inaction?
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes when people ask, what should I do? And I think I need to start doing this, really. I don't live your life. Paige doesn't live your life. We don't live your lives. What would you do? What would you tell a friend? What would you tell
your child
what would you
if
tell
they
your
were in
kids?
that situation?
Yeah. You don't necessarily need to understand why someone acts this way. You need to decide what you'll tolerate. There's a difference there. You think maybe if I give it more time, then they'll change. But you already have years of proof that they won't. And you've likely tried everything up to this point to get a different outcome, and it just hasn't. I need to read more. I need to talk to more people. I need to listen to more podcasts. And I would love for you to listen to our podcast, but at the same time, I think you already know what to do. You could just take the first step today, whatever that might be. We like to avoid action because it gives us the illusion of progress, I think.
Ooh, I think so too.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
I'm guilty of this too. I'm not immune to this shit.
I did this for a long time. It's like when you read something or you listen to something, you're like, okay, I did something productive. Like, I soaked in this information and I'm gonna, I don't know if I'll do something with it, but I feel like I've done something with it, but a lot of the times we don't do anything with it. And I think that happens. People get stuck in that. So you just avoid the action because you feel like, oh, well, I read that and I soaked it in, but did you do anything with it?
Yep.
And that's why it's important in our community. We changed it to where people who listen to the podcast can come in because we want to know what you are doing.
Yep.
Taking action. What are you doing every day to help you, be happier with yourself or make decisions that you want to make? It's not just listening. It's not just participating. It's like, take action. But we do get stuck in that, like, I listened, so I must know that I'm doing something okay.
I've got more books on entrepreneurship, how to buy a business, endless books about financial metrics and memoirs of people that have done great things. And I've done very little with it.
Execute.
I don't execute.
Right.
You can read about it all you want, but I'm still just as miserable at the end of the day. I just have a head full of knowledge that I've done nothing with.
Yes.
I know what to do. I don't need any more advice on this. I know exactly what to do. I'm just too chicken shit to do it.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
We all go through this. This is so common.
Yeah. I've seen this a lot from people in recovery too. When I go to the treatment center, one of the first questions I ask, there'll be a group of people. Like I usually go up there with a group of 4 or 5 people, and I'll ask the question, show of hands, how many people's first time in treatment is this? And it's usually about half of the room.
Okay.
And then I'll ask, how about second time? And it's about, 10, 20%. Then I'll ask, how about 3 or more? And it's about 40% of the room have been there 3 or more times. They're not going to learn anything new. And
no.
It's a good place to detox. It's a good place to get away from your environment. There was this guy.
Again, must be nice.
Right. Yeah. There was this guy, I remember one time, he asked for a ride home and from a meeting. And I was like, yeah, I got you, man. No problem. Happy to be of service. Happy to give you a lift. Took him back to his place. And on the way there, he was talking to me about, hey, how did this work for you? How did you get through it? And so I told him what I did. I said, if you're interested, I'm more than happy to help you sit down and go through this. And he's like, cool, great. And then I gave him my number. He called me 2 or 3 days in a row, and then he stopped calling me. And then a couple of weeks later, I see him again, and he's just fresh off of a relapse at this point. So he'd relapsed since I dropped him off and we talked. And he told me, he admitted at that point, he's like, I've been to treatment about 17 times. I know this book front to back. But he lied to me about it, acting like it was his first time or something.
No,
but that's just, it just goes to show that's a guy who knows. He know every bit of this stuff.
Well, that's why it's important not to gauge people's success by going to meetings.
That was something else I was going to mention earlier about McNamara's fallacy. Is that just going to meetings alone?
Just going to meetings alone doesn't mean anything. Even going to treatment, it's all about behaviors. Again, it's about behaviors. What are they showing you? What are they proving to you? What are their actions showing you? Not words, actions.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what we're looking for, sort of like this illusion of progress. That's one of them. And then we're almost hoping in some way that we're going to find an easier answer. Like someone's going to present us with exactly what we want.
Like, this is what you need to do. Here's what you need to do. Like a lot of people will ask questions and they want a response that's going to be easy, right? They want a simple response. They want something that's like, oh, here's what you need to do. It's not that simple. It's usually a difficult, uncomfortable solution that you don't want to hear, but you need to hear. And Matt and I talk about this a lot, like when we talk on the podcast, is that we share things that we feel that people need to hear and not necessarily want to hear. And that's hard because we do have people who listen who are like, I have to turn this off or something because this was hitting too hard. But in reality, it's hitting hard because it's something that you need to feel and it's something you need to go through. And it might be something you really need to hear. You need to just act on or do it or soak it in for a moment and see where it's going to take you. We're so afraid to be uncomfortable. We're so afraid to hear something we don't want to hear because it's too difficult. We want the easy path. We want somebody to tell us, oh, well, you just need to stick it out and you'll be fine. But that only helps for a short period of time.
Yeah. And probably
you know what I mean?
A minority of people too.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I mean by stick it out, I mean just tolerate and just deal with it and just that's what you want to hear, right? You want to hear that's the easier way to go, but it's not. It's easier right now, but not in the long run. It's not. You have to deal with these things. You have to figure out what it is within your relationship or whatever it is that you're dealing with. You have to figure out why it's so difficult for you and not look for the easier way. It's not going to help you in the long run. You
already know the answer. The answer just sucks. And it is fair to say it sucks.
Yeah,
whatever it might be for you,
sure.
It probably sucks. It's probably exactly what you think it is. It's probably exactly what you think it is. If you're struggling with a substance, you probably do need to stop. You just need to stop. I know that sucks. I know that there's a lot of fear wrapped up in that. I know that there's all kinds of shit wrapped up in that. But you and I both know the truth here. What are you going to do with it? I think that's another piece that sucks too, is that once you know, now you have the fear of responsibility because you have no more excuses. I know the answer. I just don't want to fucking do it.
Just want to do it.
And so you live in this, you're like torn in two, knowing the answer and then being too scared to execute the answer. And that's a horrible place to be.
Yeah, it is.
I think this is the benefit of the community. It's people living through stuff like that.
Oh, for sure.
Like, that is a valid feeling to have. And I'm right there with you in a different part of my life. Not with the relationship necessarily, but other parts of my life. I still deal with this. You still deal with this.
Yeah.
You know the answer.
Right.
Just, it sucks.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of uncomfortable hard work, and I have to confront my biggest fears, and it's not going to be easy. Like, some people have to rebuild their life in their 50s. That's not easy.
No.
But you know that is the solution at this point, because you've turned over every single stone that
all of it. Yeah. And you're at your wit's end. You're like, I got to do something.
It sucks, but you're not alone in it. And it doesn't make the answer wrong. It's hard, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you know the answer. Oftentimes when we're asking, and I've done this so many times, I've asked someone a question about, hey, in my career, if I wanted to do this and this, the answer is always the same. I guess I'm expecting to hear someone with some new, fresh perspective that's going to give me like peace and thinking that, oh, I can just stay comfortable without having to make a major change and get what I want. I can have my cake and eat it too.
You're waiting for somebody to soften the blow.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of us have this fear of grieving and fear of making the wrong decision and fear of doing something out of our comfort zone. When that fear holds us back, it's like sometimes we just need to jump and let go and see what happens and figure out that we're going to survive this. We will be okay. We will survive this.
Yeah.
Staying in it too long or dealing with it for too long I might not survive that, honestly, by doing the same thing over and over.
That's a good point.
Like, I may not survive that by sticking and doing it. Like, I will survive if I actually change and act.
Yeah. Yeah. If your gut's been telling you the same thing for months or even years, you don't need more information. You just need to take action. That's all there is to it. That's what this is really about. And James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, breaks down how to make big changes in tiny microscopic ways over time.
Yep. Yeah. Because we have to make at least some progress each day with good habits, because if we, and eventually it'll add up, but if we do bad habits each day, we're eventually going to regret all of those small habits that we're doing. We need to shift our perspective and look at the smaller good habits.
Yeah. There aren't a whole hell of a lot of people that just YOLO into things, like, F it. I'm done. I'm out of here. Just quit. There are people that do that, and their stories, whenever they figure it out, are inspiring.
Yeah.
But they got balls of steel, man. You did what? Like, you just, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
They'll just go do things. They'll just move halfway across the world and go do what they want to do, and it works out. But I think that there's beauty in that. Here's something else I think that we sell ourselves short on, is that up to this point in your life, you have already survived 100% of your hardest days.
Yep, exactly.
And you've had some hard days. What makes you think that you wouldn't also survive this one? Yeah. It's crazy to think. We have all the evidence in the world right in front of us that says we are resilient and we can figure things out. But in our heads, we say that we aren't. And this is the end of everything. If this one thing, I don't get it. We're just looking for an easier, softer way. Oftentimes we're looking for someone to validate our own bullshit. We're looking for someone to not challenge us and to tell us that, I'll just keep doing what you're doing, but that's usually not the right answer.
Yeah.
Usually not.
Right.
Not always, but usually it's not.
Yeah.
Usually we know the answer. It just sucks so badly. And I get that.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
Trust your instincts on these things.
This next one is, man, this is like me in a nutshell after just talking about that. I think it's a perfect segue.
Yeah, I agree.
So King Solomon from the Old Testament, there's something called the King Solomon paradox. It is a psychological phenomenon where people give great advice to others, but struggle to apply it to their own lives.
Practice what you preach, basically.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us suffer from this.
Yeah.
I really do.
Man, I'm as bad about this as probably anybody.
In certain parts of our lives, yes.
Not in this part of life. This part of my life, I've walked the walk, and I can absolutely back it, every bit of it.
Agreed. Yeah. But it's other things. I mean, just normal. Even like parenting, we do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really easy to say that kids get no electronics until they're wearing your ass out every 5 minutes, going crazy.
Well, it's that,
there's no
and
other
also
kids
like
outside
all the
'cause
kids,
they're all
yeah,
electronics.
because it's all everybody's doing that. And yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it's really easy to tell a friend you deserve better. But what are you doing in your own life?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really when it's us, our emotions cloud our logic. We get so wrapped up in our own fears about things. But when it's someone else in an identical situation, it's really, really easy to know the exact right thing to do.
Yeah.
And this is kind of back to the first one that we talked about. It's like you already know the answer. You just need to do it.
Yeah.
You don't need more info. You just need to take action.
Right. Right. I mean, it goes with trusting your instincts and trusting your gut. Like we almost give ourselves too much information to where we don't trust ourselves anymore.
Yeah.
But we can logically tell somebody what to do, but emotionally, we allow our emotions to take over and we don't take that same advice because this kind of goes with the terminal uniqueness as well too, where we feel like we're unique and that doesn't apply to me. My advice to them won't apply to me because my situation is different.
Oh, that's a good point. Oh, I'm different. I'm different. You don't, I had this.
You don't know
that.
my story. My story is different. My situation is different, but yeah, okay, some of our stuff is different, but
it's all the same.
The grand scheme of things,
basically.
no, it's the same shit. Like we all go through the same kind of shit. Our triggers are like the same feeling. Our the way that we are treated have been pretty similar. Like our stories are very similar. The way that we feel is very similar.
More
we all have the
similar
same
than
types of
different,
similar. Yeah,
without a doubt.
it is. So a lot of the times we'll excuse that and say, oh, well, I think that they should do this because it's easier for them. And that's just not easy for me. Well, why is it easier for them, but not for you? Like we have to ask ourselves those questions. Why do you feel like it's easier for them and not for you? Because I guarantee you, they're going to have the same emotions that you do surrounding this topic that you're talking about.
So I've got a story on this one when it comes to sobriety.
Okay.
So there was someone really, really close to me. And I knew that he had a serious problem with drugs. And I was still using at the very same time. But my problem wasn't as bad. Right? His was way worse than mine. And if we're going to talk about back to measurables, it was worse.
Right. No, we know that progressively it's
he had
different.
run-ins with the law. He had treatment stints. He had tons of relapses, a lot of attention on him because of the problem. Right?
Yeah.
I remember sitting down with him and telling him about the importance of sobriety. Telling him what he needed to do and how he needed to go about it.
Okay.
Meanwhile, being a hypocrite, going home and hiding my own addiction, taking 20 or 30 pills a day and drinking in secrecy.
This was before you were taking 60 pills a day?
Yeah, this is back when it was still quote unquote manageable.
Okay.
I was unique, remember?
Yes.
So anyway, I was doing this very thing. And I remember feeling in that moment just this like disgusting feeling in my stomach. It's like, how could you say that when you know you need to do the same thing? But it's so easy to shut your own head up at times. It's like, oh, shut up. It's not, I'm different, right?
Oh my God.
Doesn't apply to me. That's way worse. Obviously, I'm not that bad, or else I would have the measurables to reflect it. But I didn't. I was just as sick.
That's somewhat delusional.
Yeah, very delusional. I mean, have you ever seen weight loss coaches that are overweight?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that too, right?
Right.
It's like, I mean, maybe they know this stuff.
I mean, there are gray areas on certain things. You know, like we're still together, but we discuss that it's okay to leave, right? Even though we haven't been in that situation ourselves. Yeah. So there are gray areas with certain things that we discuss when it comes to this. But you said before,
you would leave the shit out of me if you had to.
Yeah, that's true.
And vice versa. I think there are some things we've talked about that are non-negotiables in our relationships, and I wouldn't think twice.
Right.
It would suck.
But it's like I know my worth and I know my value, and if you're going to do that to me, F off. I don't really care.
You had already essentially done this. You were prepping.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
Getting ready to walk out.
Yeah. But in our situations, when it comes to terminal uniqueness, we have the same thing where it's like our situation is different, but it's not. It's not as different as you think it's not. I mean, as you think it is. So. Yeah.
Okay. The last one, Thomas Sowell, who was a writer and an economist. He had a really good take on decisions. I think that it's intuitive when you hear the quote. He said, "There are no solutions, only trade-offs. There are no such thing as solutions. There are only trade-offs."
I love this, especially for black and white thinkers and all or nothing thinkers, and those that think that if we do certain things and certain outcomes have to happen. But there's always something that you have to sacrifice. You're never going to get the solution that you think you're going to get. It just doesn't work that way. Like I think about myself, like, okay, I'm just going to talk about something real quick. I don't know.
Run it.
Okay. So I was thinking about when I went through my weight loss situation, or whenever I lost 50 pounds and I was doing all the things. I was hoping that I would have like the perfect body, right? I would not have any loose skin. I would have less scarring or something. Like I would feel like all the fitness people that show me what they look like, but I had a lot of flaws. I still had the extra stomach. I still had, you know, the scarring from when I was pregnant. So I know you don't ever get that perfect solution that you think you're going to get. You get there's trade-offs. Like, yeah, I'm healthier. I feel better. I look better to myself.
Dude, you're
I
hot.
felt happier.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Thank you. But you know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like,
I
it
know what you're
wasn't
saying.
like perfect,
Right.
you know? Like, and you struggled with that too because of your extra skin that you don't have. It's so crazy to me. But we really do. Like, we think that if you can't win, don't try, right?
So I think it boils down to it's that we think that there's a perfect solution out there that has no downsides. That we believe that there is a perfect solution to my problem that has zero risk, zero downsides.
Yeah.
It does not exist.
That does not exist. No, there's a risk to everything that you do.
Yes.
Everything that you do, any choice that you make,
Even
there
some
will
of the
be something.
simplest, most apparent ones in the world. Let's say you're late for work every day. Okay. You need to go to bed a little earlier. But in doing that, you're trading being able to research your news or watch Netflix or do something like that.
Yes.
You're sacrificing one thing for another. Pick your hard. Choose which hard you prefer.
Mm-hmm.
In sobriety, this comes up all the time. The trade-off in sobriety is that you have to learn how to have fun a different way. You have to learn how to process emotions. You have to learn how to be the outcast, quote unquote. You have to learn how to do all this stuff. But the upside is you get your health back. Most of the time you get your family back.
Yeah.
You get restored relationships. You really understand what it is to be at peace. And like your skin actually fits your fucking body. Like you feel great. You
become authentic.
It's like the problem has been removed.
Mm-hmm.
But the downside is it takes a lot of effort and you have to give up a lot to do it. Yeah. There's no perfect
solution.
On the other side of it, if you're with someone who's been a chronic relapser, if you're with someone who's been abusive, and that can be emotionally, psychologically, however, physically even, it is unlikely that there's a perfect solution for how do I stay married and be happy without all those problems. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. That solution does not exist. It is impossible. You're going to have to give up something. So you give up all those measurables and those years you've been together and the Facebook photos and the fantasy of having a family and the dream that one day you were going to have this happy family. You give that up for peace and serenity and safety because you can't have both things at the same time. You have to trade one or the other. Make the decision of which one you want. Choose your hard.
Choose your hard.
Leaving a relationship is one of the hardest things in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
So is staying in one.
Right.
And the way it affects your children and the way that it affects your life and your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Your mental health. And for a lot of people, it boils down to that. You have to save yourself or you stick around with the off chance of maybe saving them, which is sort of a fantasy anyway. Which one do you prefer? They're both really effing hard. They're both horrible. Which one do you prefer? That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Getting to that point. There are no such things as perfect solutions with no downside and no risk. No. You just got to choose your hard.
You do. And you have to choose the hard that is going to benefit you in the future. Like mentally, physically, those things. It's going to be hard. It's not easy to do. But as long as it benefits you in the future, you can continue doing it. It goes along with like enjoying the journey. Like you said earlier, learn to enjoy that hard. Learn to enjoy that journey.
Yeah. Mark Manson said this. He said, you don't build psychological resilience by feeling good all the time. You build psychological resilience by getting better at feeling bad. This is about loving the work that you do. Mm-hmm. Being okay feeling bad. You just get better at it. Understanding that I'm going to feel bad sometimes.
Yes.
You get better at doing that. You develop more tools along the way to deal with it until eventually, I would argue, it doesn't even feel like bad. It just feels like is. This just is.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want people to misinterpret that quote on being in a bad situation.
Oh, please don't.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about.
No.
There. I hope
no.
you didn't take that.
No, but it could happen. It can happen.
Think about this in terms of your health too.
Yeah.
It's really hard to eat clean. It's really hard to measure your food. It's really hard to go out of your way to bring healthy meals with you. It's also really hard to have diabetes.
Actually, it's really easy to do that. I love doing that.
Because you love the work.
I do. I enjoy having my little Yeti with my boiled eggs in there and my ice packs that people look at me like I'm weird. I don't really care.
But it's really hard to not like the way that you look in the mirror. It's really hard to not have a good self-esteem. It's really hard to be on medications.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to have diabetes. It's really hard to have trouble finding clothes that fit you.
Yeah.
Which one would you rather struggle with is what you have to ask yourself. Staying in a relieving relationship, it's the exact same thing.
Yep.
To get sober or not, it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Change is painful. Okay. It's very painful, but so is being stagnant. So
I think it's more painful to be stagnant, but you don't realize how painful it is because it's more painful in the long run.
Yeah.
If it's more, but whenever you change and it's painful, it might be painful now, but later on down the line, it's not going to be as painful. But people don't recognize that because they think, oh, this is painful now, so it's not going to help me down the line. But it is going to help you down the line. Yeah,
that stuff, it's an investment into yourself, into your future and everything else like that. If it hurts, I would say lean into it, as a matter of fact. If it's uncomfortable, it's probably a good thing if you're feeling stuck and stagnant. Stagnation will ruin you over a long period of time, over a long enough period of time, much faster than change will.
Yeah.
Change sucks in the beginning. It feels so foreign, man.
Yeah, it does. But I'm a big believer that drastic changes need to be made in order to make real changes further down the line.
Talked to a guy last night who just left a career of like 15 years,
mm-hmm.
resigned. Was like, I just got to a point where I was no longer happy there. And I was done with it. And when I did it, I was at peace. I was like, what's next? He's like, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. Right now, it's scary. I'm not going to lie, but I know I'm going to figure it out. I was like, God, man, I would trade anything to have your, I'm just such a chicken shit about this one. This is the big one for me. Luckily, and that's something sobriety has afforded me, is that I have normal people problems now. That is the greatest thing ever. As I just have normal people. This is a normal people problem.
Yeah.
I prayed for fucking times when I would have problems like this.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Yeah.
And I'm still being a little bitch about it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm not going to do what I'm doing forever.
You're turning over every stone.
I'm not going to do what I'm doing forever. I just want to make sure I can put my kids through school. That's like a big one. Get them through college and everything else. But we've identified 4 different questions you can ask yourself, 4 different acid tests that you can throw at any thoughts that you're having, whatever they may be. The chances are, whatever question that you have, you already have the answer to it. Treat yourself like you're someone that you're responsible for caring for. What advice would you give your daughter who came to you with the exact same question? What would you tell them? That really helps you frame the advice that you ought to give yourself.
Yeah.
It's
true.
We get a lot of people that ask questions, especially if they're new in the community. And I know where it comes from because you just don't know. And you've never been around a group of people. You haven't read enough experiences. So you feel like you're alone floating in the ocean on a life raft. But eventually you're going to be around long enough to gather enough experiences where you're going to be like, I wasn't ever wrong about this. I just needed the validation to know that I'm on the right track with my decision making.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of being around other people here. This is really, really, really difficult if you're planning on doing it all on your own. It's even scarier.
Right.
And once again, I cannot underscore the importance of community here.
Mm-hmm.
That's why our community exists. This is why sobriety communities exist too.
Yeah.
People come in there with the same things. I'm struggling with this thing. I'm struggling with this. Unfortunately, there's no crosstalk, so you never really get good advice unless you stick around after the fact. It's never made any fucking sense to me. But anyway,
we allow crosstalk.
Yeah, by all means.
Yes,
if you've got experience with it, we'd love to hear it.
Yes, it's
and
so
if
important.
If it's advice it doesn't apply to someone, they're just going to forget about it.
Right.
It doesn't need to be the be all end all.
Take what you want.
I know why. I'm not an idiot. I know why they do it. I just But I think we sell ourselves short so often using things like the sunk cost fallacy, which is that I've invested 10 years in this. I've invested all this time and effort and we have a house together. And so what? Is it working for you? And if it's not working for you, then what we're really saying is that we care more about the measurables than we do the actual, what we got into a relationship for in the very first place.
Can I go back to that one real quick? Because I didn't touch on parenting with the measurables.
Oh, let's go into that.
Okay.
Oh, this is a good one.
Okay. So you can take this with a grain of salt if you like. Since my children are only 10 and 12, we don't know how our parenting style is going to affect them in the future.
Well, it's TBD.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm still going to speak my opinion on this, and I can change my mind at some point. But here's how I feel about how we measure our parenting is if a lot of the times we say we just want our kids to be happy, and we'll measure our parenting on the fact that they're happy. And I don't agree with that, because that means, letting them do whatever they want to do. It's giving them sugar whenever they want sugar. It's
more screen time.
More screen time. It's these things that are not really healthy for them in the long run. For me, it's how can they regulate their emotions? How are they talking to me about things in their lives? How am I apologizing to them whenever I feel like I'm doing wrong? Like, I'm gauging our relationships and like how we speak with each other and how they're handling stuff outside of the home. How are they handling things with their friends? How are they handling things at school? How are they able to set boundaries with their friends? Like, that's how I'm going to measure
how do they handle feedback and criticism?
How do they feedback?
You
and
can kind of look at that
criticism.
as a measure of how resilient are they.
Right. And I don't know if it's really like gauging my parenting style, but I do think that it's important to see how I'm doing based on those things.
Yeah.
Oh, are they safe? Are they in a safe home? That's important.
Yeah.
Are they able to talk to me about things that are really going on in their lives that are really difficult? And am I able to hear them, validate them, not shame them, but still, if they want advice, I will ask them, do you want advice or do you just want to vent? Sometimes I suck at this. I'm not perfect at that. I do kind of have that, like, I'm going to lecture you for a moment. This. Yeah. But, and my daughter will call me out on that, but she is so emotionally mature. She's, it's just incredible. But back to the measuring, I just don't think that we need to gauge how we're doing based on our children's happiness. They need to learn how to feel all the emotions. They need to feel sad. They need to feel hurt. They need to feel these things that we're humans. We're not supposed to be happy all the time. They need to be uncomfortable sometimes in order to grow and change and be productive adults.
If your kids seem like they're really comfortable all the time, I would question that. Because if you ask a 12-year-old boy what makes them comfortable, they're going to say, my PlayStation, sugar, freedom to do whatever I feel like doing. I hate school, staying home. None of these things are really benefiting them.
Right.
In short bursts, these things are all great, but if that's what a 12-year-old's goal is.
Yeah.
So you can really gauge, I would say, how uncomfortable you are is probably a better measure of, are we close to what we are trying to achieve here? Which is, I need you to be a productive member of society one day.
Yeah.
I need you to be resilient.
Yeah.
I need you to understand how to deal with life when I'm gone.
Yeah.
You're going to have to raise a family one day.
Yeah. And I'm not going to be there.
I
can't be there for you forever. There's a time when you're going to grow up and you're going to have your own family. And it's up to you to, teach them these things and learn how to do things without me telling you what to do. Like, that's important.
Yeah. I think that was a good one. I'm glad you went back to that.
Yeah, I forgot about it.
Parenting's a big one. I think the synopsis of all this goes back to, we mentioned this Hormozy quote a long time ago in an episode, probably been over a year ago, but it's when you're stuck between two choices to make, choose the one that's a story that you'd prefer to tell for the rest of your life. Which one is that? If you just use that frame alone, you are unlikely to choose the easy way. You're unlikely to choose the passive direction. You're more likely to want to tell the story where you overcame something difficult. You challenged previous beliefs. You challenged the norms out there, and you did what you really believed in doing. That's the story that we want to take to our graves. Life is far too short to not actually live it.
Yeah, and live by your values.
Yeah.
Live by what you believe in. So many of us don't live by that stuff. We compromise so much just to keep the surface level things going that we think are measurable.
Yeah, status quo,
the status quo, the comfort.
Else.
Yeah, all of that.
So I hope it's been helpful. I hope that in some way this kind of gets back to some of our growth stuff. We will always be here for you as a voice of validation to let you know that you're not crazy for feeling the way you feel. You're not crazy for being angry or anything else. What we're here to do is to make sure that you not only feel validated, but you feel challenged, and that you grow and you start to challenge some of your thoughts, some of the thoughts that have left you stuck in this situation for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
And so our goal is to ultimately get you to break that one way or another, whether that's figuring out a way that you can stay and be happy, whether it's recovery, if that's leaving a relationship, whatever it might be. It's probably not going to be what you've been doing for a very long time.
Yeah.
Something will have to break, something will change, and we will be with you every step of the way.
Boom.
I think that's all we've got.
Yep.
We appreciate you joining us this week. Stay tuned for next week. We're going to have another great episode. Until next time, I am Matt.
I'm Paige.
And we'll see you.
Bye.